Good morning and welcome to Building Tomorrow, Design and Build Interiors, a webinar by the Srishti Institute of Art, Technology and Design. My name is Agnishikha Choudhuri and I teach at Srishti.
Good morning, I'm Samir Parker. I also teach at the Srishti School of Art, Design and Technology. I have studied interior design myself and have been teaching it for almost 10 years. It is a field that has shaped me as a person and a designer. It has allowed me to engage with the world in numerous ways. And as I continue with my own progress, being able to engage with succeeding generations of young people who are entering a brave new world is something I find I'm very privileged to be doing. So that's a little bit about my educational background and Shikha.
So, in contrast to you, Samir, I did an interior design program much later in life. In fact, I started much more academically with literature. But I always wanted to do design and I was inspired very much by the spaces I saw around me that were challenging. I grew up in Bombay, which is always constrained, and I always wanted to make spaces that made people happy. And I think that's where it came from. That's where I started with my career. I did a master's in sustainable interior design pretty much in my early 30s. And now I teach here, and we have lots to share with you about what we've been up to.
So, from different backgrounds in how we sort of studied the field to how we practiced it, and interior design for me allows me a series of tools with which to engage the world. It's very much about being able to understand space, break it down, see how people are using it to create new opportunities, to live their lives, to work and play, as we say. And I'm fascinated by how, with the changing times, with new materials, with new approaches to space, what the opportunities are. This field has given me a lot, like I've said. It's allowed me, from an interior designer, to actually practice exhibition design, to create site-specific installations. It's allowed my design skills to reach other places where I've been fortunate to work with people from other fields. And it's these intersections of fields that I think I'm privileged to kind of be a part of.
Just to go further, and I think we're going to reiterate a lot of our points as we go along. A lot of the things we're saying, we're going to say again. But I think design is about interiors. Design and build interiors is really about people. And it's because even when I was going back to school and deciding to study spatial design of some sort, I wanted to do interiors and not architecture because it's about human scale. It's about designing from the inside out. It's about designing people size and then thinking bigger from there. And so that's something that Design and Build is going to talk about, and we're going to reiterate that as we go along. So how this is going to go is that we've thought of some things we want to talk about, which are opportunities that are available in this field. Part of what is propelling us is that we have a new program that we're offering. This is the Bachelor of Vocational Arts in Design and Build Interiors that we want to talk about, and we'll talk about that later. But the field itself. So first we're going to talk a little bit about opportunities.
One level of opportunities in the field that comes to the forefront, especially if you're talking to young people who are looking to make careers, is the diversity of careers. From, like we said, the spaces we live, play and work everyone wants to create a new aspirational identity for themselves. From the real estate boom, which is creating number of housing units across the economic spectrum, clients, people who own spaces are willing to put the time and effort to understand what design is and also to aspire to what it can be. As a design professional in the years to come, the ability to engage with this, the ability to seek out these opportunities is something we ourselves are excited for the next generation to be looking at. But it's not just in the residential or real estate market. the workspace is changing radically with time, from the ideals of the Googleplex or cutting edge offices to even small scale working spaces. Employers and people who work are realizing the value of design in their workspace.
In productivity, in whether it's backache from bad seating, or if it's having good quality light that makes people be healthier for more days of the year, and just in those terms. But also I think it's about TV, it's about how people have so much more knowledge of what spaces can be like. We're not willing to just deal with one tube light in the house. You want better lighting.
Absolutely.
You want even if you live in Mumbai and you have 550 square feet and that's all you own, the possibilities of how it can be, how well planned it can be, how much space it can give you, how good the storage is all part of people's awareness.
Absolutely.
Materials, another thing. Earlier, anybody's told you kitchen counter, you'd say granite. Now they ask you, your clients ask you, what about Korean? What about the new materials that have come out? But I thought marble, stains with lime. So people know more, and so we're dealing with a much more informed client. Just like to stop for a second and say that we'd be happy to take questions at any point. Please type in a question if you have one, or raise your hand. But sometimes it's easier for us to hear sound if you type in a question, and then we can just respond to it whenever we're taking a breath. So anytime you're welcome to do that.
Because we can continue talking, this is something we feel very passionately about. Please do interrupt us. We would like this to be interactive, and
we're not less boring if you're talking to and we're answering your questions.
So to round up this idea of career opportunities, we've talked about the how we live and how we work. How we play is another huge area, and in fact, those of us who have sort of great ideas, large scale, there is opportunity like never before in retail spaces, in hospitality spaces, from fantasy theme parks to the kind of scale of what entertainment people expect now. It's really how far we can push our ideas.
Even if you think about healthcare, and you think about some place like Cloud9 in Bangalore, which has taken healthcare to a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about going to see the doctor or how you have your baby, it's about what are the colors, what's the experience, and that's all in spatial design and interior design.
So we've spoken about the aspect of a career. A further aspect of this is entrepreneurship. This field is particularly welcoming to those who can conceive, process, and deliver. As a young professional, there's a unique opportunity to make one's way in the world. While there are architecture and design firms of various scales where one can find very satisfying careers, while you might find careers being an interior designer for, say, a hospitality chain or a retail chain, there is a whole other studio practice that we would also like to talk about. The very nature of this field encourages those who can kind of take on ideas to, as they're designing, conceive what it is like to produce and deliver. That creates a unique opportunity for clients. Whether you own a restaurant, you want to redo your house, you're looking to, say, maximize your office space. As a designer, you have clients across these spectrums. And being an entrepreneur, having entrepreneurial thinking, I think creates or allows for a lot of experimentation and a lot of progress in this field.
And what you've said about entrepreneurship, I think what we're also reiterating is that design and build has the capacity for entrepreneurship. Neither Samir nor I, when we studied, and any other designers who might be on this webinar, did we learn about how to do business and how to run the execution of a project when we studied.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at design and build as, we're actually coming back. It's historically been there, but it disappeared in the 20th century and it's coming back now. Design and build interiors is unique because really when my students go out and they say, I I don't want to join a firm. I just want to do my own work. I want to have my own practice. And most of the time I'm worried because they don't have the skills for that practice in the beginning. They would learn very hard lessons, loss of money, things like that, bad experiences, safety of their clients in their spaces. And entrepreneurship is something that is part of design and build, because you have to come out ready to have your own practice. And that means learning those skills. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. This is really a part that I think, Samir, you should talk about, because you have done a lot of this part of it.
Like I said, a design approach has allowed me, or rather interior design background has allowed me to reach out into the world. As many of you all would know, the realm of the interior encapsulates so much of human experience, from furniture design to experience design to lighting to exhibitions. These are various fields which are open to those who have got a background in interior design. I was very fortunate. I was excited by the idea of temporary spaces. I was excited by how interiors which are created for a fleeting moment, for an experience. And there are analogies here with how in India festival pandals get set up, or for instance how we celebrate our weddings. Now while these are all fields which are valid for interior design, for me it was an opportunity to create new things, to try out new ideas. And we talked earlier about how architects, architecture is seen as a very noble profession, and it very much is. But interior design has certain advantages over studying architecture. Shikha mentioned how it gives us an understanding of the human scale, how we can work from inside outwards, and we can choose what points of reference we want to be creative from. So for me, exhibitions led to creating installations, to creating site-specific installations, to working with various spaces for limited periods of time. And this whole field of exhibition and expo design is something which I have worked in. And like this, for instance, there are furniture designers, there are people who've gone on to study lighting or experience design in equal detail, and that's something this field really allows for.
And one of the ways that we work at Srishti is that our annual exhibition has been run by students and designed by students. Producing something that has a deadline, that has to be finished by a certain moment, that has a kind of ribbon cutting ceremony that you've got to be ready for no matter what you do, the level at which you work is completely different. Whether it's about problem solving on the spot, or it's about taking instruction or learning how to manage a team of people to efficiency, or using the resources and budget you have, you learn that all on a micro scale when you actually do a project. And we're looking at that kind of apprenticeship format being part of the design and build as well, but learning by doing rather than learning through a textbook.
Absolutely.
Because no matter how much theory you have, when you're on the ground and there's a disaster waiting to happen, you need to be resourceful. And we're going to think about that some more as well. Talking about unique identity, and by this we mean identity of India, of us as Indians, and about designers in India. And we are very, very diverse as a group. One of the unique things about us is that we are diverse. So when you're looking at it from an interior design point of view, there is a sort of ultra customization that is required. No two houses are the same unless you're living in, a building built in the last 10 years. No two houses are the same, apartments are different, sizes of cabinetry and spaces are different. There are all sorts of things to deal with there. So on one hand there is that, and on the other hand there is this brought by TV and brought by globalization, this standardization.
Right.
So people want an Italian kitchen in their kitchen, but an Italian kitchen has its own sizes. So there are certain problems with that, and as a result we often end up following a Western model that doesn't fit us and that doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for our cooking. Just talking about kitchens, it doesn't work for our cooking technique, for instance. You can't have a wonderful, beautiful Korean white counter if you're going to worry about haldi stains, for instance. Anything you want to add to that?
I would like to say part of this unique identity is our access to this tradition we have of building crafts across the country. The customization Shikha is talking about can be taken to levels in our country which can happen almost nowhere else in the world. Combine this with access to technology. There are many practitioners now in India who are kind of meeting at this boundary of ultra customization with high technology, unique hand skills with cutting edge production systems. And if there is an area where we can really redefine, I think, a global aesthetic, it is in these areas where our understanding of technology and process combined with the ethos of how things are handmade, how craft is inbuilt into the making of something, can really create spaces and products that change the way we kind of do things.
And possibly in a way that it isn't being practiced right now, because when I think about a hereditary carpenter, for instance, who may not be literate, but whose knowledge base is vast, who has an understanding of woods and materials that I will never have because they have that kind of background, but how they are used, so to speak, in a project is by being told what to do. Design is about people again, and it's about people even at this management stage, and it would be incredible if we could garner their understandings and be able to bring that into a project. So rather, when you think about traditional crafts in design, we think about adding something to prettify the rest, or putting in a really nice little terracotta vase on the side, or putting a little bit of tiling. But what if the processes of traditional craft were involved as experts, and we could involve them in that? That would
at a very fundamental level, and it is this human resource, if we can start tapping, that we actually create something for the future. We actually are inheritors of something quite wonderful, and if we can actually take it into the future with some value addition, that's part of this unique identity, which is part of these times. There's a certain sense of coming of age I think we have right now in this country. We can hope, yeah. We've kind of already come of age ourselves, but I think there is a sense of being able to stand on a global stage now with confidence in our ideas, in our processes, things that earlier we were less proud of or did not celebrate. I think now we have the capacity to, and that's part of this identity which I see really kind of forming. And in the generation of designers, design, build, people working in the field, I'm really hoping to see new generations of craftspeople as well, actually take ownership for their skills and be these entrepreneurs. And if new generations of craftspeople, young designers, interior designers are actually working together, the solutions, the ideas that will come out will really be, unique in the world. So I think we were really excited by the way we're seeing the opportunities in the world to come.
So if you're someone who's thinking about this field, or you're interested, or you have something to say, please do type in, and so we can, include your discussion. Vidhu was asking, I just wanted to know that this course will equip me to work in the industry in a setting which involves local craftspeople. Okay. So in some ways I think we talked about that, but yes, it is about that. It is about working in an industry in which local people are involved as level of experts rather than as labor who has no say or no understanding. And the bringing of design to it is really about the way we think about the problem. And we will talk about that a little more. Yeah. And I think there's one more.
To just add to the last point about craftspeople, one of the things about being a sensitive designer is appropriateness of craft as well. Every region of India has a very unique way of dealing with material, dealing with space. And rather than try and use this as a prestige, if we can actually be working with craftspeople in the context of what the craft has emerged from, then that could really be a win-win-win situation.
I hope you answered that a little bit, Vidhu. We'll come back to it. So we are moving to design build interiors, talking a little bit more about it and talking about it from point of view of three areas that we'll talk about. We'll go into them and then we can discuss them some more. So just to go back to the last slide, really what Steve Jobs said applies to design and build interiors. It's not what it looks like or feels like as much as how it works. So it's not, when you're thinking about spaces, and this is, this is an opinion in some way, and I don't know if Samir even shares it, but I think that design is about, it can be about many things. It can be about how beautiful something is, it can be how, all of those, but at the bottom of it, it's how it works for you as a human being. It's how it fits. So we thought this was an apt quote to go with. The first area we're looking at, 3 points, process and outcome. I think that was in our title, in our little write-up in the beginning as well, about design. We often think of design as just an aesthetic add-on later, and that what happens before is the real mundane nitty-gritty stuff where people build. But here we're looking in design build, we're looking at design as process.
Absolutely.
What do we mean by something like that? It's a big question.
The current thinking around the world now is that everyone is capable of creative process. It's a question of nurturing it, building a discipline towards it, and testing it out in the real world.
There's a book, right? Creative Confidence, a book by Tom and David Kelly, who started IDEO. Talks about this specific aspect, that whether you're looking at, whatever you're looking at in the world, we think of designers as these special people who are born creative for some reason. I was drawing from when I was 3 or something like that. But what they say is that everybody is capable of creativity, and it's not genetic. It's not, oh, my mother used to draw, that's why I can. It's an inbuilt, inherent capacity, and people often tend to feel, and it's the way society is designed, that you say, no, I'm a logical person, I'm not a creative person. But when you look at companies today, when you look at large corporations to small corporations, everybody understands that the world is about innovation. And it's about innovative thinking, it's about creative problem solving. So when you want to bring that in, it's about bringing creative problem solving at the stage of the process. When you're taking your design to completion, how do you creatively problem solve in those stages? Not just what's at the end where people can say, oh, that's so beautiful.
Absolutely not. And part of the training, part of what leads one to create spaces is a deep understanding of everything that goes into the making of something. Each material has a unique process. Each material has come to us through a unique set of circumstances. Understanding each of those to some extent educates one as to the sensitivity of how one uses it. The people who work these materials themselves, as we mentioned before, are a vital human resource. There's literally generations of sort of coding that's gone into their way of thinking, the way, for instance, wood is measured traditionally, the way wood is, the systems by which it's stored and kept. Each of these things only comes with years of working with those who work with it for generations. And one can only aspire to understand to some degree what that is. But the joy of this work is actually when the makers become participants in it. This process is a genuine involvement of the person who's at the lumber yard, who's advising you on the kind of wood with the kind of use you have, the carpenters who are treating the wood and machining it into sizes which might be most appropriate, the kind of products you're envisaging making with them, or furniture or joinery. And at every stage there is an input on how something is to be best used, how something is to be most appropriately put into the world. And it is this process that I think then strengthens the outcome. That one is not worried about the outcome when one trusts process, when one is constantly building the capacity to engage with the process. And that's something that we cannot emphasize enough in the field of design, and even more in the field of design and build. Because we are trying to remove what is extraneous. We're trying to eliminate, say, wasteful practices. We do see process and outcome as being a linchpin around which this idea of design and build really works.
You know, what you said reminded me of an incident, and I was working with a client, and I was only a consultant, but I was not part of any of the execution. And this was, I had designed cupboards for them, and I had built them to, I had designed them to very specific needs of both the lady and the gentleman. Size of suits, how far they fit, how they kept and folded their materials. And I had designed the whole thing and I had sent them in, all the plans, and they were technical drawings. And then when I went to site, they were like any cupboards. They were just normal cupboards. And they were 24 to 25 inches from the wall. And if you, I mean, these are technical things, but if you were to look at the width of shoulders on a suit, they are not that far. So that's the widest thing you have in a cupboard. The whole room lost 3 inches because of that. And the carpenter built the cupboards that he had learned how to build from the beginning. And I think that that was when I realized that there is a huge problem if you as a designer are not involved in execution.
Absolutely.
Both in terms of informing as well as learning. I didn't understand how materials work enough to be able to know that there's a certain depth that the wood has, that is the back space, and how to think about that. And the carpenter didn't understand that I was filling a user need at the time. And that was a classic example that it reminded me of. When you work with the craftsmen, you understand and they understand.
Absolutely. So, moving ahead to the next critical idea around which we see this design build approach, it's constantly having a real world context. The act of design is often celebrated a great deal. Those who are, as we mentioned earlier, we believe creativity to be an innate human quality. But those of us who manage to have a profession in it are seen as people who've kind of managed to, take their creativity and make something of it. But we would like to emphasize here that unless one has an equal amount of management skills, that this creativity will often come up against a lot of limitations. You will not be able to realize the wonderful ideas you might have unless there is an ability to manage those ideas, to bring them into the real world with context and without compromise. That takes some doing, but being aware of how something is taken from the concept to the delivery stage, being alive to mistakes that can happen at every stage, looking out for the possibilities is something that design build really works around.
I'm sure you've all heard of the term project management. So project managers are this rare breed of people who can actually take projects to execution. They take care of liability, they take care of budgets, they take care of estimates, they take care of material reaching, they take care of labor being paid, they take care of all these things. They're very exciting people. No?
Vital.
Well, the thing is, it's because they have a bunch of skills, and usually it's something they get trained in, or there's a project management course they went to, or they have years and years of training. But for sure, if you got a design education, you did not learn project management skills at that time. So you come into the world with a lot of beautiful conceptual ideas, but no way of knowing, other than school of hard knocks, how you're going to implement them. And with interior projects, they are usually not large budget enough, like massive constructions, that you can actually afford a project manager. So we were wondering, why is it not possible for someone who is an interior designer or a person in design and build to step into the world with project management skills, with an understanding of the realities of budget, with an understanding of how to write an estimate, how to acquire materials, how to do all of that. And so integrating project management into this would be really interesting. Charles Eames, in an interview in 1972, he was a very famous designer who in fact wrote the India report from which NID started. He talked about how design is about the constraints. Design is about what makes, what are the issues that you have to think about when you make a design. Now when you design in school, when you design during your education, you design blue sky. Everybody tells you don't worry about constraints, just do beautiful, wonderful pieces. You cut down the world and the first thing you have to deal with are constraints of price, constraints of size, strength, location, things like that. And he says that so beautifully that designers, a really good designer is someone who has the ability to recognize as many of the constraints as possible. And every project is a unique mix of those constraints. So that's the real world part of it that we can take from there. Finally, looking at redefining design standards. And this is the context of this country, really. We have been trying, as we said earlier, a lot of what we do and a lot of our aspirations, a lot of the fact of TV and our exposure to the world means that we have been looking at emulating Western standards. And I'm sure you've come across a lot of this in your work. For instance, if you have, right now, a client wants an Italian kitchen put into their space. Now they're really beautiful. They're very expensive and they're very beautiful. Now, an Italian kitchen is a function of standardization. It is standard sizes, standard tools, standard spaces. And when I think of how, when you have a certain shelf height, it has to fit a certain space. And usually a counter would end up being about 36 or 37 inches. 36 inches is 3 feet. Now, I'm 5 feet high, and most Indian women are about 5'2". We need to work at 32 or 33 inches to be able to have comfort when we are cooking or chopping or managing things. So you give me a fabulous Italian kitchen that might cost me 6 or 10 lakhs.
At least.
And then I have to deal with back pain, my grandmother's complaining, nothing works and everything gets stained. So this is something that is a problem for us. We want to emulate, but how about if we redesign standards to suit the context that we have?
Absolutely. To be able to adapt, I think, is one of the key things. To be able to take the best practices, the best products from around the world and to look at them in our context, or to redefine what it is in our context. I think that is another key area, because with aspiration, with the globalization of ideas, the danger is of a bland similarity as well. Yeah. And when we talk about redefining design standards, we really see the next generation of young Indian designers taking the best of what is there in the West, understanding Indian use, Indian context, the unique things that make us special, and delivering on that.
So we want to talk about our program, the Design and Build, the Bachelor of Vocational Arts in Design and Build, which is a brand new program that Srishti is offering this year. It is accredited by the University of Mysore. And it really is quite unique because you have interior design programs. And we have a lot of bachelors in interior design, but what we lack is design and build programs.
Absolutely.
And we are interested, our curriculum is going to be designed around having as much apprenticeship, real-world experience, and understanding of business practices as it will about design. And we are looking at producing unique individuals who are able to be entrepreneurs, to step out and deal with the unique problems that India has. So we thought about what we could talk about is the core values, because in the area of business practices, there are a lot of ethical things to think about. And we wanted something to scaffold our program that gives us individuals who we are proud of out in the world.
Absolutely. The design field itself, and even more so the field of design and education, needs anchors. Especially as we are in a world of opportunities. With opportunity comes the opportunity to do great things, but the opportunity as well to get things wrong on a great scale. And we do believe that we are providing professionals who will go into the world, but with some strong values. And a couple of them we'd like to discuss with you. A key value for any designer, and how we make this our own, is empathy. While empathy can mean a number of things to various people, we see empathy as being key in being able to value the people who use our spaces. Whether it's our clients or whether it is other people who will engage with our spaces, our furniture, our products, we value these people. We would like to put ourselves in their shoes, see what it's like to engage in the acts of living, working or playing with the same sincerity that we would do it for ourselves. We do believe that spaces should be inclusive, they should be accessible, and this only comes not as something that's pasted on later, but as a very inherent value of approaching design.
And as interior designers, we don't deal often with new spaces. What we deal with is spaces that are already built that you have to kind of readapt or redesign in order for a new user to use it. And so many times, how many of you have been to a public building that doesn't allow a wheelchair to get in, or that the stairs are too steep for a senior citizen? These notions that inclusivity is optional are what keeps us back from being part of the global partners in the world and of being a superpower. So empathy, key. It's about people.
Absolutely, and once again, it's this human scale of things we would like to re-emphasize. An interior designer is always looking at things from the inside. You're seeing it from a human point of view, a human sort of eye level.
Big word, sustainability. Okay.
Bandied about a lot these days. Sustainability, if I might start, I'm sure all of us have different takes on what sustainability is, and we welcome the diversity of ideas of what sustainability, the notion of sustainability, especially as a value. We shouldn't get confused between what is green and ecological and what is sustainable. We do have responsibilities to our client immediately, but those responsibilities are balanced with the needs of the community, of the environment, of the economy, of a larger social milieu. And sustainability is also not a value that gets inculcated overnight. It's something that is built over time, and each of us has our own interpretation of it.
Yeah. For instance, something that really surprised me in some ways was, we always think of sustainability and eco-friendly looking like the same thing. And when you see lovely terracotta tiles or brick buildings with exposed brick, and that looks so beautiful, and we immediately feel warm and fuzzy, and that must be sustainable. But when you think about burnt brick or terracotta tiles, when ancient civilizations have gone past, the only thing that's left behind is some terracotta tile. So terracotta is not, once you burn mud, it's not going to go back to being mud or letting a plant grow on it. So then you wonder, sustainability is not as simple as being earthy. Sometimes it's something else. Sometimes it's about managing your resources. Sometimes it's about, living more frugally and putting in processes that allow people to save water. It could be any of those things. So it's a complex idea, and it takes time to get your head around it.
In fact, in this age of interiors where there's such a quick turnover of space, I myself am trying to figure out what is sustainable, because certain materials have an inbuilt life which are actually appropriate for the nature of what is there. Earlier we would look at something lasting for 20 years or 30 years, and for certain spaces to have materials that do that is actually completely unsustainable, because the nature of what the use is. So it's that kind of approach that I think we hope to build with the approach to materials and moving on. Which
actually segues beautifully into our next point and our next value, which is that of adaptability. And I think we think about this from more than one point of view. So it is the adaptability. So sustainability and adaptability are kind of linked in that what is sustainable in India may not be sustainable in the United States.
Absolutely.
So it's about location, it's about the circumstances, it's about weather, it's about so many things. And adaptability is the core value of the designer, being able to shift around and work with what changes the context, changing contexts, to be resilient in the face of social values, economics or environment. And new information keeps coming in about the environment. So what you held as the core truth 20 years ago may not be so anymore, because we have new proof of new issues.
Absolutely.
So it has to be about you being constantly able to grow.
Aware. And this adaptability, in fact, there's no doubt it's a core value, but I also take a certain pride in it as a designer. The resourcefulness. One is never at a loss. One is looking for opportunity, one is looking for solutions, one is looking to go around issues that might hold someone else up. Adaptability is something one almost wears as a badge of pride. One doesn't expect to have a pristine site, one does not expect to have parameters exactly according to one's choice. But where adaptability really comes in is a resourcefulness and a confidence that one will be able to deal with this and in the best possible way. And that's another key value.
And we have a good question from Vrinda about population. So in India, population is a main player. How do designers think of customization in that case in public spaces? Good
Very
question.
good question. Thanks, Vrinda, for that.
So, again, I think one of the ways I would think about it immediately is I think about resilience. I think about materials that can handle the use of a lot of people.
Yes.
I can think about making spaces that work for a diverse set of people, that people from all economic tiers feel comfortable coming somewhere. Like how someone who is a laborer might not think it's okay to walk into a cafe coffee day, not because somebody said don't come, but because it looks too posh. So I would think about that. I would think about diversity of people. I would think about language. In India, we would have a huge problem if we decided only one or two languages were okay. Maybe that's how not to communicate. Maybe language at all is an issue because there's so many people who are illiterate. So there are many things to think about, but immediately when you say population, then it gives me ideas, and I think that's the core of adaptability.
Absolutely. I would see it in fact as an asset. It is an opportunity again to make something of. The fact that there will be this kind of use of a space is already setting up a certain set of directions in which I could go. Knowing that this will be a center, or what this public space is, where there will be people from diverse economic backgrounds, is actually something to work from. Right? So I don't know if that answers your question, Linda, but it's not an easy solution. And in no ways are we suggesting that there is an immediate solution, but it is an area to engage with, and we're not short of opportunities by which to create possible solutions. So
last one, how much time do we have? Let's see. Another 5 minutes. So we're just going to end quickly. The last one is accountability, and this is completely rooted in the idea of design and build. Now, when you're an interior designer, there's a certain ethical format. When I did my education, everybody said ethically you have to think about what you are as a professional. You have to think about what you're going to offer your client and how you're going to keep your promises and how you're going to make sure that they are taken care of and they're satisfied. But I think we put in accountability as a value because when you design and then you promise that your design will be realized, and that you will be there all the way to make sure that the changes or the issues are taken care of, then you become accountable at another level altogether. And it's about following clear and transparent practices, to have efficient planning, to have efficient delivery schedules, to think about your clients and your collaborators and your vendors and the workforce, and about how all of them are left satisfied at the end of a project. Imagine what it would be like if every project you did left people happier than when they began. So that's accountability that I see. Well,
I think you've covered it really well. It's about accountability both, so to speak, above and below, to your client as well as those who you're responsible to. And it's just efficient. It makes sense. And to inculcate this from the earliest stage, I do believe is important. That's why we see it as a value. So with these core values, we hope that there is a grounding, there is a base on which we can build. These core values guide us as we develop the course program, as we develop this engagement with the real world. And that I would like to once again emphasize that no part of our program exists in isolation. It is about engaging with actual evidence of what we would be talking about as design. It would be constantly, at every year, even from the first year level, seeing what it is like to translate into the real world. And with these values, we hope to be able to build that further.
Well, professional capability just ties it up. If you have an ability to look at, adapt to design standards, to adapt them to the needs of the time, if you have an ability to look at real world issues, to be able to manage people on the ground, and you have a certain value set that keeps you steady, then we would have really done our job really well. So just to show you about our program, I think the link, did you have that up? Yeah. So this is Design and Build. You are welcome to go and try to look it up, ask questions about it. We still have the program available for you to register and apply for.
Absolutely. The combination of, we hope you know a little bit about Srishti, but do go to the site. Srishti has been built on an ethos of educating people ethically and creating well-rounded people. We hope to take this further into the real world, I think, and operationalize it. And the fact that we have this unique opportunity is something we are very excited by. This is a program where we are really eager to see put out into the world. We are ready to learn. We really look forward to people, to suggestions. We are adaptable, we'd like to think. And over the years to come, we think there's something quite unique that we can engage with.
So thank you very much.
Thank you all for those who are listening and for joining us.
Next week, webinars at Srishti continues with more talks. And we're going to take this forward, and you should keep checking out our site and looking up to see what's next. Something else might be of interest to you. So please do visit often enough to see what's new. Thank you very much.